get in the dirt and dig into it and clean up. As a mother with a beautiful young black male son,
Yes.
how do you feel about the state of the city of Philadelphia now with our youth?
Well, I mean, I think everyone can agree it's really trying. These are really trying times,
Yes.
especially for young black men. Obviously, with my son, I'm seeking to raise him with all the great morals and values that my parents even raised me with, and also that he would be successful. And I know that that's challenging in this city with a lot of families, especially with the attack, if you will, on young black men. It's just not good. And as a judge, I can tell you I've seen the impact of that in the court system as well. And so my heart goes out to the families that have, of course, lost their sons because of violence, because of other different things that could have happened to them in the city of Philadelphia. But I would just encourage them to know that there are so many of other young black men that are out here that are seeking to do the right thing, looking for help. And if you can help someone, I'd say always do it, always do it. I try to make sure that my son is very well connected with other young black men in the community. He participates in sports and so many other things that as a parent, I'm there and I'm happy for him.
That's right.
And as a parent, I can tell you, I am concerned for his future. But as a parent, I'm concerned for the future of all of our youth.
Right.
Because if this is what we leave them, then we have a problem.
Now, absolutely. As an educator, because speaking with you, I know you big on education as well. How do you feel about the way that education is being presented to the urban community right now? Other communities as well, but I'm from the urban community, so most of my statements want to come from where I'm from, and the urban community, and how they saying this is how we're going to be educated now with the Zoom and all that stuff. And as you know, we had Councilman Derek Green on here, and he said it's like 15,000 households that's not even equipped to actually have their children be able to sit in front of a laptop or computer or whatever.
Yes. Well, of course, COVID has done a number on us as a society, of course, and even in the city. And with the school system, I think it's unfortunate that kids have to go to school online. I think a lot of kids are going to be lost, you know, in terms of their education, in terms of even their commitment to even going to school. Because then how do you enforce them coming to school on Zoom? I'm sure that that's a challenge for most of the teachers. And it's not good. I think that kids will fall behind if we don't do what's necessary to try to help them to be able to stay on point and to learn the things that they should know in preparing when they go to the next grades. I think it's very difficult, and I think that we have to use a greater level of ingenuity at this time to address those issues as it relates to having kids to learn by way of Zoom when you have a large population that don't have access to computers or don't have access to even getting the system connected. And then you have kids that will fall by the wayside because they have parents that may work, they can't get them up to go to school because they're not there. So there's a whole lot of a litany of issues that comes to play as it relates to Zoom. And I can tell you as a family court judge, when I was a family court judge, you know, it's really important that kids go to school. Because I would deal with kids that were truant and those kind of things, and we know that one of the first steps to crime or delinquent activity is, of course, truancy. So when you get kids that struggle in school, that may fall out of school, or they may fall behind, if you're in Zoom and you can't really talk to the teacher, you really can't get the personal help that you're looking for, I think that presents a lot of challenges. And kids are faced with certain things about whether they should continue with their education if they can't access it the way that they have done so in the past. So we have to do something, I think, in the city to really address those issues.
And a lot of professionals documented that crime comes from poverty.
Yes, of course.
Right? Now, Philadelphia being number one right now in poverty in the largest cities, right?
Correct.
And you being a judge, so you see the impact of poverty standing in front of you.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, you have to look at things, I think, on a case-by-case basis. When you talk about poverty in the court system, there are several levels that the court is impacted because of poverty. One being that if you have people in the criminal court system and they're fines, probationary fees, and things like that, they have to pay those fees. And if they don't have the money to pay the fees, then what does the court do? You know what I mean? And so a lot of these fines are reduced to judgments on people. And so once they're finished their case and their case is over, then they have now this judgment against them, and it goes on their credit. So there are things like that that's the problem. You also have issues when it comes to family court and family issues that a lot of kids are in need of services and programs. And if there is no funding, then that family is impacted because they don't have what's necessary, the resources, or can't access the resources because they don't have the funding. And poverty has played a major role in our system. Currently, I sit in the civil trial division in the motions program, and so I deal with a lot of foreclosures, a lot of tax sales, things like that. And there are so many people that are in poverty in the city that are losing their homes, as a result of foreclosures or sheriff sales and things like that. And then people complain about the gentrification and things like that. And so when these people lose their homes, there's another group that comes in, of course, and they purchase them, and they then buy the community, if you will, and they fix it up, and they make the community so that most people that once lived there can't afford to even go back there. And so those are problems, because then what do we do with a society of people that are largely in poverty, and maybe they're homeless, or maybe they're about to be homeless. And with the impact of COVID-19, what it has done to the court system too, is that it has caused people to not be able to have access to their cases. You can imagine as it relates to maybe family cases with custody issues. Also when it relates to where I sit in the civil trial division, if people are looking to try to file certain complaints or documents as it relates to their living situations, all those things are have been heavily impacted because of COVID as well.
And because I was a therapist, and I seen it firsthand, and you actually came to speak to my
Yes.
clients, and that was beautiful. They loved you. I'm no longer there now. I've moved up to George
Yes,
Jefferson.
I understand.
I hit the George Jefferson.
It happens.
But it happens, right? But how do you feel as a judge, right, that they have to come in front of you, and you have to determine, okay, I have to sentence this individual or not sentence this individual on what's presented in front of me, but I have to take into consideration the mental state of this individual. Do you have to do that as well?
Well, it depends on the case. I mean, obviously, if you're dealing with people and there are no mental health evaluations or anything showing that they are competent to stand trial, or they're not competent to stand trial, all those issues would happen before if there is some kind of indication that the person may have some mental health issues. However, on the back end, that once a person may be convicted in a criminal setting, then that person, you can mandate that they receive services under maybe probation or something like that. And generally, those services would be there to help them. However, with the COVID-19, those issues also are a problem. And people being able to interact and to come into offices and to see and to receive their services, all those things are a problem. And especially if you're already, coming from poverty, how do you get there? I remember when I was in family court years ago, one of the major problems would be if I would mandate kids to go to a particular program or something. Well, Judge, we don't have a way to get there. Does the court provide car fare? Things like that. So there's a whole lot of things that the judge would have to look at to, I think, make a just decision. Obviously, when you have to make a decision as relates to maybe criminal court, family court, or civil, the judge has to follow the law.
Right.
Okay, and so following the law is really important. And I think, when we see so many things that are happening today, I think people want you to kind of bypass the law and just do what they want.
Right.
But the law is still important, and we have to follow the law because laws make our society orderly. And if we then toss out all of our laws, then what do we do as a nation, or even as a people, or even as a city? When we saw the impact of some lawlessness that had, kind of risen after the aftermath of course, George Wallace and things like that.
Right.
So it's very real, and the court is very aware of all these issues. And I think as a judge, that as individually you understand things within your heart, within yourself, and the things that you see in the community. But at the same time, you have to follow the law. And I think that if you have a heart of compassion, as well as a heart of understanding what the rules of law are, you can certainly have a greater impact than not knowing anything at all. You know what I mean, about what's been happening.
I remember one time I was on my way downtown, and I said, you know what, it was always I'm gonna stop by your office, and I had a meeting at City Hall, and then it was Seth Williams at the time. He was the district attorney. So I'm in there, and this is like my second meeting with this guy, and I'm in there, and I'm trying to get him to start an alternative program.
Okay.
Stop putting cases on these guys that got caught with a bag of weed and stuff. Let them have to come to my organization, do a 6-month thing. I give you a report on them, and if they can't complete that, then do what you have to do. That way they can leave you without a record and leave me without a record.
Right.
And they can, be back to society. Because once they get a record in their black, half the table is taken off what they can and can't do. So once they say, okay, so we had a meeting. Then I said, oh, I'm gonna go check on my girl, Paula Patrick. They said, oh, she ain't too friendly with the cops. That's what they said, right? So I said, why? She just automatically think we lying and throw us out of our courtroom. Now, I'll let you address the audience on that. They said it was a cop that was lying on the stand. You knew he was lying, and it came out in the newspaper that he was lying.
I'm sure.
What happened?
I don't know. I mean, I was in criminal for about 5 years, and that was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. But I can tell you that as a judge, when you have, especially in the criminal courtroom, you will have police officers to testify. I don't have a blanket prejudice or bias against any police officers whatsoever. I do think that we have some exceptional police officers, even in the city of Philadelphia, do a great job. And there are police officers, when they come testify, that may or may not be truthful. So as the judge has to make a determination as to whether the police officer is telling the truth. And so depending on the case, I don't know what case it might have been that they may be referring to, but I can tell you this. It probably was just one case. It wasn't an entire amount of cases, because as a judge, I follow the law.
Right.
Okay, so and as a judge, I have to make credibility determinations of all witnesses, including police officers. And police officers are not better than anyone else when it comes before the court. They have to testify. Their testimony must be given the same weight as anyone else's testimony under the law. And I will give the same instruction to a jury, that you can't weigh their testimony above anyone else's. And so police officers, just like everyone else, they're human, okay? And they may or may not be telling the truth. And it's up to the judge to be able to determine that. And maybe in a situation or two, I've had to determine that. And of course, maybe the paper has probably said something about it. But I don't have a reputation of coming against police officers, no. I think we've had some excellent police officers that even appeared before me. And I knew that when they came, that their case was going to be a solid case. But at the same time, police officers, they don't bring the cases. It's the prosecutor that brings the cases. And so they must look at the evidence to determine whether it's going to meet the standard in criminal court. The criminal court standard is a very high standard. It's higher than any standard in any other court. It's called beyond a reasonable doubt. And so if you have a reasonable doubt, then the person is not guilty. And so as the judge, you have to sit and listen to these things, and you make the determination. So I'm proud to say this, in my tenure on the bench, I've been fair to everyone. And I've certainly sought to do a good job with everyone that has appeared before me, as well as for the citizens of Philadelphia.
Wow. And let me ask you this. What made you want to become a judge? Like, is it a certain moment, like when you was a child? Because I'm going to tell you why I said this. Two of my grandchildren, they both 9 years old right now. And I think it was a year ago, right about a year ago, I called Judge up and I said, Judge, I have two of my granddaughters with me and they want to hang out. So I'm going to bring them to City Hall. She said, okay, I'm going to give them a tour of City Hall. She opened her office up. And I have photos of this. And she brought them in, and she showed them her chambers. She let them sit in her judge chair up top. And then we walked around City Hall. She told them what this building was for, what this room was for, litigation here, and so forth. And to this day, all they want to do is be judges. And they both straight A students. To this day, just because they came in here. Now, when they first came there, as any other kid, they want to be an astronaut, fight the animals like Will Smith and Men in Black. But that changed them right there. That was their defining moment of they want to be a judge. Right. What was your defining moment?
Well, I didn't really have an interest in being a judge. However, I knew as a child I wanted to be a lawyer. And I had a situation that happened to me many years ago. I'm from North Carolina, so coming from the South, I didn't go to kindergarten. So I started out in the first grade. And by the time I went to the first grade, I could read pretty well. I started reading at 3 years old. And so when I got to first grade at 6, I was a pretty good reader. And so my teacher, she would take you and she would have your chairs in a reading circle, and you take turns reading. So one day it was my turn to read. And I could read pretty well. And my teacher was kind of shocked. And she stopped me from reading, and she asked me, who taught you how to read? And I said, it was my mother. So she protested and asked me again, who taught you how to read? And I said, my mother. So apparently that was the wrong answer, because she took me and she sat me under the table. So of course I go home and I tell my mother what happened. And my mother, being the Southern black woman that she was, she came to the school, she didn't teach her, they had words. But sure enough, the next day and every day thereafter for the school year, she would sit me on the table every time the students would read. And I would sit at the table and I would hear how far they would read, and I would go home and read that much further. And so I tell you that story because I never forgot what it felt like to be mistreated. And I really devoted my life to ensuring that people would not have to feel the pain of injustice that I did at 6 years old. I remember that clearly, and I remember how that felt. And I remember that it was because I could read and the other ones couldn't, that it was a problem for the teacher. And so it was that kind of propelled me into wanting to be a lawyer. I would study and read autobiographies of great black people, Thurgood Marshall, Malcolm X. I mean, so many things that I would do in terms of reading biographies and autobiographies of great African Americans. And I always said I was drawn to the justice system, because I hated injustice. And even as a kid, I hated injustice. And so I wanted to be able to help others. So I was really fixed early on in wanting to be a lawyer, okay? And so another stepping stone in someone's career being a lawyer, if they want to be a judge, then you would go to the next level. So that presented itself to me. And I can tell you, I enjoyed, being a lawyer. I enjoyed going to court and getting justice for people and fighting for people. But being a judge, I enjoy that as well because, I don't have to pick and choose my clients. You know what I mean? I'm in a bigger position where I access so many different people, and I'm able to render justice on a broader scale. So I think the interest came that as I was a lawyer for almost 10 years in the court system, and I saw how some judges would rule, and I would say to myself, that was totally wrong. Like, if they can do it, I can do it. They're not any better than me. They don't know as much as I do, especially on that issue when they ruled against me. So I felt that this was something that I could do, and I pursued it. And, in Philadelphia, obviously, when you run for judge, usually the party endorses you, and people, because most people don't know judges, they don't know the recognition. I was never endorsed by the party, but I can tell you this, when I was a candidate, when I would go around, I would tell people my story. I told them, things that I was interested in, and my background, and my understanding of the law. People overwhelmingly supported me, and that's how I won. And so I ran and won, the first time, without any issues, and I thank God for that. And so, I've been sitting in the seat ever since then, and I really enjoy being able to serve justice to the citizens of Philadelphia because that's my heart, that's my passion.
I watched you in your court. Mm-hmm. I used to come to City Hall because I go down like I did up Harrisburg. Yes. I go unannounced and I come down City Hall and I know where everybody's office is at. And I used to come sit in the judge's courtroom, and she'd see me and nod and wave, and I'd just be sitting there and I watch you, do what you have to do. And because some of the stuff I didn't know the actual law, I thought, what way she gonna go with this? But I didn't really know. But then you always took time out to explain, hey, there ain't no personal feelings. Right. Legally, this is what I can do and can't do. So you do want that in the judge. Yes. So moving forward, you're thinking about running for a state.
Yes, I am seriously considering a run for the state Supreme Court.
State Supreme Court.
There is one vacancy coming up for next year's election. Judges' elections are every odd year. So it would be 2021, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I mean, I have a vast background in all types of cases and all types of litigation. I've also had some landmark rulings with the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. That means I've had cases that actually have made law in Pennsylvania, and so I think that I'm well equipped and well prepared for that, given my background experience. So I'm looking forward to coming and to running and winning for our state Supreme Court, as there are no African Americans on that bench. And I think that that bench should be reflective of our entire Commonwealth, and at least there should be some representation of some African Americans on that bench.
And there's only one seat open?
It's only one seat at this time, yes, correct.
Wow. And how many males on that bench?
Right now there are three males on the bench.
3 males and the rest females.
Yes.
And how many is on the bench?
I'm sorry, there are 4 males on there. How many? There's seven
individuals
yes.
on there. 7 justices on there.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me ask you this. Let's say you fast forward, you win. What's the first thing you would like to do?
The first thing that I would like to do is I would like to kind of get a handle on the situation as it relates to maybe some issues relating to people if they were once incarcerated, coming out, giving them greater chances in terms of access to some of the resources and programs that can help them to be rehabilitated further. One of the other things that I would like to do is to make sure that judges are uniform in implementing the law across the board. Because I do see as a judge that there are differences in understanding and a difference in the different opinions that will go out for, because before above us is the Superior Court, and they may issue a different ruling on some of the same issues, and so it's not uniform, and it should be uniform. So there should be a way where we can, address those type of things as well. And I'm also looking forward to making sure that the court is kind of accessible in terms of knowledge and education to like the entire public. Most people have no idea what the Supreme Court does, and it's like it's a secret, and what they do, it's like people believe that it's kept a secret, but people just don't know. And I believe that we should have, we as judges and or justices on that court should be interested in getting out and educating people about what the Supreme Court actually does, the role that the Supreme Court plays in your own personal life, and how the decisions that the Supreme Court does, how it impacts you individually. I think most people don't even understand that they'll go out and they'll vote for president and get upset and riled about the president, whether their candidate wins or not. But really, the president doesn't have as greater impact in your life as, let's say, a judge does. And certainly our Supreme Court. And so we see now in Pennsylvania where there's litigation that is now occurring because of Trump's loss to Biden, and because of some rulings even our Supreme Court had even released. So these things are important. And these things that I think most people don't know that they should know.
Right. Now, as a black woman, how do you feel of the state of the image that's being portrayed now, like on TikTok and all this other stuff, of the black women right now in our urban community?
Okay, I don't have TikTok, so I don't know.
Well, it's crazy. Let's just put it like that.
But I can say this. I think it's imperative that young black women present themselves, in a light that is decent and that is respectful, because I think that as women, period, black or white, that we are oftentimes not looked at someone that would be legitimate, that has a substance. And I think that when we have images, maybe clothes are off, or have clothes off, doing things that we probably should not be doing, that it puts the wrong image in the minds of a lot of people. And so, and then they would assume that all of us are like that, which is, of course, the wrong assumption, but it happens. But if I could tell a young girl something, I would say, you want to have self-respect, and you want to have great self-esteem. And when you begin to do things that erode your self-respect and self-esteem, then now your confidence goes. And so when you come for a job or for school or things like that, you don't have a level of confidence that you could enjoy if you were not a part of these things. So I think it's important that it goes to your own self-image. It's important for you to have a good self-image of who you are.
Absolutely, well said. Well, in closing, right, let my audience know how they can reach you, get in touch with you.
Okay, they can't reach me. They can't get in touch with me
No.
as a judge. But I am a judge. I currently sit in City Hall. And, if I know there are people that have called judges' chambers because of certain issues that maybe they want to express their opinion about, then, of course, they can do that, and our information is public. But I currently sit in City Hall, and if they want to call my chambers, they could, 215-686-8338.
And there you have it. I'm Tracey L. Fisher, the Entry Point of View, Unapologetic, with Judge Paula Patrick.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.